Good evening. I will now call to order the Monday, October 2nd, 2023 regular town council meeting. If you would, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, up first on the agenda is the approval of the memorandum of the September 18th, 2023 regular meeting. A copy has been posted. Are there any questions from councilors?
Make a motion to approve.
First by Councilor Garrett, second by Councilor Melton. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed. Up next is the approval of October 2, 2023 claims. Are there any questions from councilors? I have one question, Cindy. I don't know if there is a claim for legal fees in the police department. It just says legal police 2.5 hours, Nooning and Whitsett, $750. Do we know what that's for?
No, I'll have to look that up and let you know.
Yeah, I mean, I know we've got representation for BOPAC and just, it'd be good to understand why that, why that's down there.
Sure.
Councilor Plunkett, I think there's still another one on there too, and I don't know when it's from exactly, because I didn't print off the date, the first part of it for the month, but looks like there's a 360 also for, it looks like OpenGov 1.2 hours. I guess that's pretty clear, I guess. I'm sorry. So, but that's Whitsick and Nooning again. So,
Okay. Are there any other questions from councilors? I would make a motion to approve claims less the $750 to Nooning and Whitsett through the police department.
Okay.
Second.
Second by Vice President Burke. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Sorry.
Aye.
aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you.
Amy, did we have any requests to speak?
No, we did not.
Okay, up next would be Mayor Administration Update. Deputy Pickell, are you going to do the update here or are you going to tie that to the budget?
I was hoping he could tie it to the budget
okay?
on that specific piece.
Perfect. All right, up next would be Town Council Update. Are there any updates from councilors? Moving along. Old business. First item of old business is the consideration of the 2024 budget for the town of Zionsville. This is ordinance 2023-20. This is a final reading and we have Deputy Mayor Pickell. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm going to ask Tim Berry to join me, and I've got Cindy Poor on standby. All right, so obviously this has been a longer process than I thought it was going to be. I had high hopes and intentions when I came in. They were obviously a little misplaced in timing, not effort. But so what we've created here with the help of Councilor Garrett and other members of the council is a spending that is sustainable, necessary, and appropriate. We have tried to help the council understand that the budget must support a levy appeal. And we have limited any additional spending that would be considered the words. Anyway, we've tried to cut the budget down as much as possible without cutting into muscle. We used Councilor Garrett's spending plan as a guideline. I went through personally and realigned what Councilor Garrett had suggested in his presentation to move over items that would be reoccurring or they were operational. We came to a point where we had, in that time, we've actually reduced the budget to where it is right now by about $4 million from the budget that we presented you. That includes increases of a 4% COLA. We appreciate that. And a 2% 401A match. Again, we appreciate that staying in the budget. We accepted the council's proposal that we would eliminate any extra hiring besides the 2 Zionsville Police Department hires, 2 Department of Public Works hires, 1 Parks employee that's maintenance, 1 HR professional, and 1 finance professional. Training all remains in the budget. Those items, while I understand Councilor Garrett's move to remove them, we understand that without those individual trainings and seminars, some of our employees would be not state qualified or remain credentialed in their operation. ARPA funding shall supplement or supplant program budget expenses per the agreement with Councilor Garrett. So in that, the initial thought was to reduce the budget down to 0 using ARPA funds. And I think all of us came to the realization that time may be against us in trying to do that. So instead of trying to manipulate all of that out in the short time that we have left, we came to an agreement on $2.7 million worth of reductions from the budget that are hard spends. The comprehensive plan is 1. The transportation plan is another. We've got $1.15 million in infrastructure out of motor vehicle CCD. We've got $720,000 for equipment and hard DPW, trucks, equipment, lifts, leaf backs, things like that. We've got $366,000 for the fire department for their SCBA equipment to purchase. As and then we've also got $30,000 to line the town hall parking lot again. It's time to do that. I think that was everything in that line. I think that totaled $2.716 million that we'd moved to ARPA, leaving the budget line at, let's see, I think it was $1.8 million. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tim Berry to kind of follow through with what I've just talked about. And then we'll come back for more questions after that, if that's okay.
Thank you, Andy. Again, Tim Berry, financial advisor to the town, representing Crow. Wanted to give you a little background information on where you are as it relates to your financial standing today and where we would expect with the budget that has been presented currently you to finish 2024. As you will recall, over the last several years, you have maintained strong financial controls in spending on an annual basis, maintaining and increasing your reserve balances throughout the last several years. You started in 2020 with reserve balances of about $23 million in your levy-supported funds. And those levy-supported fund balances increase to the end of 2022 to just over $33 million. That does include not only the levy funds, but also what you have in your rainy day fund of just over $1 million. And that's a reserve balance in the rainy day fund that has been there for quite some time. It has maintained that relatively the same balance over that same period of time.
And those, Tim, those are DLGF balances, correct? Not including other balances, things like ARPA or things like that.
Correct.
Yep.
Those are just the funds in your levy supported funds plus the rainy day fund. Where we anticipate you will end this year is just over $30 million in cash reserves. We passed a budget, or you passed a budget last year with a deficit at that time of about $5.5 million. We anticipate that deficit will be less than $2.5 million, given the fact that the town received just under $3 million in supplemental local income tax distribution in May of this year. And we would anticipate that not all budgeted funds will be spent, and that reserve balance will actually be less than that $2.5 million at the end of this year, or that deficit between last year and this year will be just under $2 million by the end of this year. Today, you present a budget in front of you with a deficit, and this number is a little different than this is 1.9 instead of 1.875. I do not have on here the debt service funds because those dollars are mostly in and out. There's a little difference between those two numbers. Just wanted to explain that difference. And we would anticipate with the budget passed today, spending all of those dollars appropriated and not receiving any supplemental lit, because we do not work those dollars into the revenue forecast for the subsequent year, since we don't know what those will be, that you would finish the year at nearly $29 million next year in reserve balances. If you could go to the next slide. This is really an overview of where you've been over the last several years, providing that detail of your surplus that you've operated with in your budgets that have led to the increases in your reserve balances over that period of time. Certainly, some of those reserve balances were brought about by CARES Act dollars that the town received, that you utilized for the payment of salaries for public safety officers, as well as, well, those are the only dollars that you reserved, that you utilized that would have increased your reserve balances. We can go to the next slide.
Tim, just real quick.
Yep.
Josh had mentioned, or Councilor Garrett earlier, if those dollars in the projected surplus included ARPA dollars, you said you didn't think they did, but the last statement led me to believe that if those would have been dollars that we spent on ARPA for public safety bonuses, we're still in, you said that would have raised that.
Those were spent out of ARPA, so that they were not appropriated. Those bonuses were not appropriated in the budget. They were spent out of ARPA, so they're not reflected within your budget. They wouldn't have had any impact on your budget.
Thank you.
This slide provides a comparison on tax rates between Zionsville and neighboring communities, provides a comparison between the tax rate in 2019 and the tax rate in 2023 for each of those communities. You will see on this list that you are the second lowest tax rate in the region. Avon is the only community that has a lower tax rate. Avon is the only community in this list that also reduced their tax rate more than you did over the last 4 years. Your tax rate went from 0.5892 to 49 cents and 49.83 cents, or a reduction of 15.4% over that same period of time.
Tim, can you just explain a little bit more for anyone who's watching? You hear a lot about my property taxes have gone way up, right, in the last 4 years, but that is related to the valuation of the property and not the taxes that the town is collecting. Therefore, if our tax rate had not been going on, the property taxes would actually be going much, much higher. Is that a correct statement?
That's correct. I mean, your tax bill is a component of not only your assessed value and how your assessed value is changing, but also the tax rate. And it's not just the tax rate of the town, but the tax rate of all units of government that are within your jurisdiction. So that would include the school corporation, that would include the county, that would include the township, well, not the township, because you incorporated those, that would include the library as well.
Yeah. And the school is not in our jurisdiction, but it is in the tax rate for the.
That is correct. It is within the I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah.
That is correct. And so your portion that you can control as a town council, the only portion that you have control over of that tax rate, of that tax bill, is what you can do with your budget. And over the last 4 years, your rate has decreased by nearly 10 cents. Next slide. Councilor Burke asked me a question, actually has brought this up a couple of times with regards to reserve balances. And so in response to that, Councilor did some analysis on the volatility of your revenues to try and determine an appropriate reserve balance and reserve levels that you should have. And took your revenues and broke them out by your revenue source. Property taxes, local income tax, MVH, LRS, vehicle excise, the reimbursement and refunds, interest income, and permits and fees. And looked at each of those as a component to determine types of variability and volatility that you would have. Then to help determine what an appropriate level of reserve balance. I believe that reserve balance is probably something that the town has maintained in the kind of in your hip pocket, and you've maintained that in each of the fund balances. It might make more sense to put that amount of money into the rainy day fund so that you would have those dollars available if there were volatility to occur. And then I would recommend having additional reserves in each of your operating funds as well. If you were to do that, an appropriate reserve balance to meet all of those obligations would be in that $11 to $12 million range. You already have a little over $1 million sitting in the rainy day fund. The difference that would be necessary to fund the rainy day fund at that dollar amount is nearly $3.8 million. I'm sorry, nearly 3.9, $3,875,000. And if you were to do so, you would still maintain more than that 15% reserve balance in each of the operating funds that you would have as well with the budget that you have in front of you this evening.
Thank you for providing that. Very helpful.
You will see that your revenue sources are very stable. Property tax amounts to a little over 40% of your revenue. Property tax in Indiana is a very stable source of revenue. Collection amounts equate to about 100% on an annual basis. Even in a recessionary period of time, those dollar amounts that are collected nearly equate to 100%. We put a 4% volatility there, which is quite frankly pretty generous. On your local income tax dollars, those are a little bit more volatile, but the state of Indiana does provide a buffer for you to ensure against those downturns by maintaining the funds at the state level to ensure and to protect you against downturns. That's why you saw no downturn effect during the COVID periods. and traditionally have not seen a downturn in your local income tax dollars.
Tim, those lit volatility dollars are more at the county level than the local level, right? So is that if there's
But the
volatility?
distributions are made at a county level.
Yeah. So if there is some because we have a different economy, I would say, than other parts of Boone County. If there are differences that are going on, that can impact us, even if, they're not being a super local impact, correct?
Your probably biggest impact in your distribution of your local income tax dollars is your levy.
Yeah, okay.
Because you receive dollars as a percentage of your levy. And while other units of government in the county have increased their levies and increased their tax rates over the last several years, that is probably what is restraining your revenues on the lit level more so than other communities.
Hence the appeal.
Pardon me?
Hence the appeal.
Correct.
Right.
This budget includes that appeal. Not the dollars, but includes the fact that we're going to push for the appeal, correct?
Those dollars are reflected in the revenue.
Oh, they are. Okay.
Yes, those dollars are reflected in the revenue. We would ask tonight that should the council want to move forward with that, a separate motion be made to direct us to move forward with that appeal.
Anything else, Tim?
I think that's it.
So I'll add a little context, counselors, just sort of as I've been working on this with Counselor Choi. I'm really happy with how this has turned out. I think Deputy Mayor Piquel went through a lot of kind of the nitty gritty of that, but they did take a lot of suggestions in the last meeting to do that. We started with a $12.24 million deficit, so something under two. And that $2 million spend is mostly non-recurring charges. So I just a sustainable budget. We included that 4% raise, the 2% 401A plus longevity pay. So it's about 6.5% to our people. Just for context, Carmel's about 3% raise for 2024. That's their proposal. Westfield's 4%, Fisher's 5%. So very much within line for those folks. I think it's also interesting because it gives revenues are actually up significantly this year, about 17%. If you look at the budget numbers, the spending is only up about 2%. As was noted earlier, that was because we had a deficit. So revenue has not caught up to that recurring spending, but I think it kind of gives us a chance to take that breather here and readdress some things as the new administration comes in, as they want to make some spending recommendations. I think it gives them some well position there. It's been a good process. It's been a group process. It starts with the mayor. She actually allowed Mayor-elect Stair and Deputy Mayor Swanson to come in and give input. So I'm appreciative of that because they're going to be actually inheriting this budget. So I appreciate her and Mayor-elect Stair and Deputy Mayor-elect Swanson for coming in and doing that process. Certainly been working a lot with the current Deputy Mayor Piquel on the blocking and tackling associated with this, and he's been very responsive on that. Most of the credit should go to the department heads. They're the ones that are actually putting this together. But I also appreciate Crow helping along the way. A couple notes, just I think for your own benefit. So fire, if you noticed in the position ads, has no new positions. That's not trying to pick on fire. I know, President Plunkett, that's been something you've been interested in, is adding to that group. I know the current administration has mentioned that. The future administration has mentioned that. They do currently have 5 open positions. So if you think about filling those positions here over the coming months, I think that will go a long ways to getting them up to, I don't want to say full staff, but getting them along the way. But also I think there's a commitment, if there is a supplemental distribution, if we get this appeal, to readdress that sort of middle of the next year. So they aren't necessarily waiting forever, but they can add those 5 people right now. The ARPA piece I think is interesting. Deputy Mayor Piquel presented what will be the ARPA plan. So I think it's important for this council to know that, if we pass this budget today, and I certainly would recommend it, we are passing it with about $2.7 million in spending that will need to be in an ARPA plan. If we don't then pass an ARPA plan, that spending won't happen. And there is a timeline for that. So if we don't spend that ARPA plan as recommended based on stuff we took out of the budget, we won't get those things. And it kind of throws a little bit of wrinkle in all of this. And the general sense I got last budget meeting was there was support for this. So I don't expect any concerns, but if there are, I certainly want to talk through that today. It still leaves us with about $3 million in ARPA funds that I think this council should continue to work for and figure out, what is the plan for that, and there's some flexibility in how we spend that. So whether it's trails or other things that we think we may need, I think it's good that it's one-time expenses. So we're not going back into unsustainable spending. But overall, I appreciate your confidence in Alex and I doing this, and I'm fully supportive of what this is.
So Josh, real quick. So if the levy is if we vote on the levy tonight, there is somewhat of a commitment from the administration current and in the next administration that may actually equal to the additional firemen and women that we need. Is that the commitment?
No, I wouldn't say the levy is, because the levy is assumed in the budget, right? We are passing this budget assuming we get the levy, and I would ask the state, we need the levy. So please approve our appeal because we certainly meet the criteria. What I'm saying is we have in the past gotten supplemental lit dollars, local income tax, public safety lit dollars, sort of mid-year. And if that came in, never want to expect it. If that came in, that may give us additional revenue sources to look at, especially the public safety lit, because it can only be spent on police and fire.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Correct me if I'm wrong in any of that, Jim.
No, the state of Indiana determines annually, they've already certified or nearly certified what you will receive in local income tax dollars on a monthly distribution next year. Each year around the 1st of May, with a distribution prior to the end of May, the state will review all of those revenues and determine who receives a supplemental lit distribution. Traditionally, over the last 5 years, on average, the town of Zionsville's received just under $2 million annually in supplemental lit distributions. And so this year it was just under $3 million, the largest one you've ever received.
Great. Thank you.
Just a question on the ARPA plan that was laid out in terms of timeline. How soon do you see that needing to come before this council to pass, the next meeting or next month?
Well, so what I would like to do is pass it, or at least present it at the next meeting. It doesn't have to be the full dollar amounts. I'd just like to at least present it with what we're taking out here today, just to sort of make sure that doesn't get lost in the year-end shuffle. And we can certainly amend that further or add to it as we identify other things that we may choose to spend those ARPA dollars on before the end of the year. Awesome.
Counselor, we also plan to include it in the non-GLGF budget that will be presented next meeting.
Perfect.
Any other questions for Deputy Mayor Patel or Tim? I would say, I just want to say real quick, I mean, I think to Josh's point, specific to this appeal, I mean, we went from 14,000 people in 2010 to 34,000 people in 2022, right? I mean, I think we've got services that our police and fire are providing that, at times we feel like everybody feels like is stretched thin. So, certainly I would hope that the appeal goes through as well. And to your point, if should an additional lit distribution or supplemental lit distribution come through, like I would, assuming I'm on the council, that'll be a strong push for me to say, listen, I think we need to make sure we're focused on fire, filling the necessary spots there. And I want to thank Josh and Alex for your guys' work here, not just on this agenda or this budget, but in past budgets. As we've talked about, we are in a spot with some surplus to be able to have some flexibility with this particular budget. And I think we've worked really hard over the last 4 years to be there. Tim, Andy, I would say thanks to both of you guys as well. I mean, this has been easily the smoothest budget process, to date. So over the last 4 years. So I appreciate everybody working together on this. So All right, are there any other questions or comments for Andy or Tim?
Tim, would we make, or Adam, either one, would we make two separate motions? One for the final reading of the budget and one for the request on to move forward with the appeal, so those two motions, two votes? Okay. Well, if there's no other questions, I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2023-20, the 2024 budget.
Second. I got a first by Counselor Garrett and a second by Counselor Choi. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed.
And then I will make a motion to authorize the town and Crow as a representative to file the levy appeal with the state of Indiana. Second.
I got a first by Counselor Garrett and a second by Vice President Burke. All those in favor signify.
Could I just ask for a clarification on that?
Yes.
Based upon assessed value growth? Because there are two excess levy appeals. There's
Sorry,
the one associated with the rural to urban, and then
Yes.
there is the one based upon the excess levy or based upon the assessed value growth.
And it's the assessed value growth that's the one that needs the authorization, correct?
Yeah.
All right, I will.
Do you need to withdraw that?
I will withdraw that motion. I'll make a new motion to authorize the town and Crow to file an appeal on our behalf for the assessed value levy with the state of Indiana. Thank you, Tim. Second.
And first by Counselor Garrett and a second by Vice President Burke. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed. Ouch, there's a number. Three signatures. All right. Up next on the agenda is a consideration of a resolution regarding a fiscal plan for reclassifying certain areas within the consolidated town of Zionsville from the rural service district to the urban service district. This is resolution 2023-19. And we have Deputy Mayor Patel and Tim Berry with us as well.
Okay, so you've already voted on the reclassification of the additional 3 neighborhoods and extra properties. This is, help me out.
That's what this is.
Yes, that's what this is. So I'm sorry, I'm behind anyway. What we need to do is reclassify these properties, bring them into town, and then also we'll apply for an excess levy as well after that is done. Do you have any questions?
Bring them into the urban district. Right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, from rural to urban.
Yeah, this is all part, I mean, this is just a formality. I mean, it's
Yes,
all
sir.
part of the reorganization. Once you get to certain points and there's utility service, et cetera, et cetera. So there's not, I don't think there's a lot to this. And it's something that we've talked about for a long time.
Mhm.
So
I welcome it.
are there any other questions for Deputy Mayor Patel? I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2023-19. Second by Counselor Milton. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed. Up next is a consideration of an ordinance reclassifying certain areas within the consolidated town of Zionsville from the rural service district to the urban service district. This is ordinance 2023-18. This is a final reading. We also have Deputy Mayor Patel, Tim, and Lance potentially if needed, but I mean, are there any questions or?
It says it's a public hearing.
Yeah, I'm going to
Yeah,
open
okay.
that up here.
Stand here for questions.
Okay. This is a public hearing. I have proof of publication in gateway of the notice of public hearing. At this point, I will open the public hearing loudly. If there are any members of the public who would like to comment, now's your chance. Sure.
Yes.
If you would, please just come up to the microphone, state your name and your address. And you'll have 3 minutes and I'll give you a heads up when you're at 2, so you'll know when you're down to 1.
I'll try to be brief.
All right.
My name is Lawrence Wrights. I am one of the other properties that are not in one of these neighborhoods that you're looking to reclassify. My property is located between the Clarkston neighborhood and Chelsea Park. The address is 5202 South US Highway 421. Typically, these additional services that are provided, or the reason for bringing these is these neighborhoods have sewer and water. I'm in a unique position in that my property is actually on State Highway 421. It's unlikely that the town will ever take jurisdiction for snow removal or any projects there. There is a public sewer. However, it's on the east side of US 421, which is Clay Township, which I cannot connect to because I am on the west side. And my only options to connect to the sewer, as I understand from talking to town personnel previously, is a manhole well within the Clarkston neighborhood, which is a significant distance away. And of course, Chelsea Park, it's not realistic. I do, we do have the priority service for trash removal, picks up occasionally. Apparently, I'm not a priority. I think it's because of the traffic on the interstate there. I don't know that I'll be able to take advantage of leaf removal, as the semis that fly down the road will probably knock most of the leaves back onto my property, making it a challenge for the town to pick those up, and sticks. I would like for you at this time to consider removing my property from the list of these that are to be included. I don't know that I'd be able to benefit from any of the services that the town provides. I appreciate being in the town. Maybe at some point, my property is about 4 acres. If it's ever developed in some way, then certainly would be great to be part of Zionsville and be part of the rural or the urban area. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim, maybe, or Andy, I don't know, maybe one of you guys can help me understand this here. We're just identifying these neighborhoods, right? I mean, if he's on 421, he's not part of the neighborhood. Or did that get looped into this?
Actually, there were a couple of properties, I think 3 or 4 properties that were included, especially in this 421 area. It was a pocket, really. Chelsea Park is a pocket, and the other properties that were grabbed as well were within that pocket to make it all urbanized in that area. Am I hitting that right? I think, yes.
And are they getting, I think I heard Mr. Wright say that he has trash service, has town trash service, or, but he doesn't have sewer, obviously, or anything like that, right? I mean, that's correct. Yeah, so we do get the town provided trash service, or town service, I should say. Okay.
Leafs, I don't think it's good government to start like taking out little individual properties. I mean, I'm sympathetic, but like if he needs the police, does that mean the Boone County Sheriff's gonna have to go through all of our jurisdiction to respond? Probably not. CPD is gonna go.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think I want to approve it as is. Otherwise, I think you'll just end up with 50 properties that are sort of scattered around that are in a sort of a nebulous no man's zone.
Administration would agree.
Are there any other members from the public who would like to comment? Any commentary from council?
Andy, how many properties were included like this one that were off outside of a neighborhood?
4 individual property owners outside of the subdivisions.
Have we heard from any of the others?
Not to my knowledge. And I actually hadn't heard from Mr. Wrights, but I'm sure that he had contacted town at some point in time. I was not told about that, though.
All right, at this point, I'm going to close the public hearing. Thank you. All right, are there any other questions? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
First by Councilor Garrett, second by Councilor Choi. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed. Up next on the agenda is the consideration of an ordinance amending the 2023 salary ordinance. This is ordinance 2023-19. This is a final reading, and we have Cindy here to present.
Yeah, this is for the additional position that we're wanting to hire prior to the end of the year.
Are there any questions for council? This is the final reading on this. We obviously heard this at the last meeting as well.
Make a motion to approve.
First by Counselor Trailer,
Second.
second by Counselor Melton. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. New business. Up first on new business is the Community Enrichment Grant Committee presentation. This is for fall of 2023 Community Enrichment Grant Awards, and we have Carol Johnson, Executive Assistant to the Mayor.
Good
Good evening,
evening,
Carol.
counselors. Like last time, we have prepared a short video for you, and I have representatives from each of the nonprofits here to address any specific questions you may have after watching the overview. Thank you.
President Plunkett, with your permission, I'd like to recuse myself from this vote as one of the organizations I'm a founding member of.
Sure. Adam, do we need to do anything for that? Just does he need to leave or go down there? Or can he stay up here? Hey. You never know. Permission granted, I guess.
It's not.
Hi, I'm Bailey Reynolds, Development Director of iLab, Independent Living for Adults with Developmental and Intellectual Disabilities. ILAD's mission is to provide housing, enrichment and educational programs, and social options that enable adults with intellectual and/or developmental disabilities, or IDD, to live in homes of their own and enjoy fulfilling and meaningful lives in their communities. We are so thankful to be awarded a grant from the town of Zionsville to support our informational and educational workshops. This programming is part of our commitment to providing adults with IDD, as well as their family and caregivers, with information and resources they need to establish sustainable supports in the community. ILAD is uniquely positioned to provide services that do not currently exist here in Zionsville, such as teaching and developing skills needed for independent living, creating a neurodiverse housing development, and providing opportunities for individuals with IDD to further their education or interact with the community. Thank you again for the grant from the town of Zionsville. We are extremely appreciative. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Young, Executive Director of the Sullivan Men's Cultural Center. We provide art exhibits and art instruction. We have a history museum which exhibits and collects local history, and a genealogy library which provides genealogy and home research materials for our community and beyond. The Zionsville Community Enrichment Grant will provide funds for the Bee Project. The Bee Project allows children and adults the opportunity to learn how a bee's anatomy is constructed by using simple shapes and recycled materials to create a bee sculpture, which will then be attached to a honeycomb structure with zip ties. This project was conceived during the pandemic as an outdoor activity, which resulted in a project which is creative, connected, educational, and safe. We intend to use this project in our summer art camp programs in June and July of 2024. We'd like to thank the Zionsville Parks Department for partnering with us on this. We will be displaying our hives in some of the parks this summer. And I'd also like to thank the town of Zionsville, of course, for this grant. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Laura Weaver. I'm a therapist and program director with the Cabin Counseling and Resource Center. The Cabin is a nonprofit dedicated to transforming lives through compassionate and professional counseling and education. Our mission is to provide quality mental health care for individuals who otherwise would not be able to afford care. This year, over 500 individuals, couples, and family will benefit from over $220,000 of financial assistance. We have 24 licensed therapists on staff, a dietitian, a life coach, and a mental performance consultant. Our programming will include a mentorship program for middle school students, open art studios, mindfulness and yoga classes, and various support groups for grief, divorce, codependency, and various other opportunities. Research-based approaches incorporate mindfulness, emotional regulation, setting healthy boundaries, and cultivating meaningful relationships. Our ultimate goal is to reduce the stigma associated with mental health through these programs. We know that when the residents of Zionsville are equipped with the skills to navigate the obstacles and opportunities that life presents us, our community becomes a place where people want to live and work. Thank you so much for considering the Cabin Counseling and Resource Center's program.
Hi, my name is Kristen Bitzigai. I'm the Executive Director for Zionsville Alliance for Mental Wellness, commonly known as ZAMWELL, and we are getting ready to launch our digital resource library. What we have heard from the community time and time again is that we need more local resources addressing mental health issues. And so we will be building a resource library that features experts and individuals, just common everyday people talking about living with mental health issues, and experts talking about navigating the mental health care system and how to identify whether you should see a psychologist or a psychiatrist, all sorts of issues. We know that the community needs this, and we are so thankful for the community's support on this project.
Hello, my name is Mark Nagy, and I'm here representing the Zionsville Cultural District. I'm a member of the board, and I also oversee the Public Arts Committee. The Zionsville Cultural District was formed in 2013, and our mission is to enrich the lives of residents and visitors through art, culture, and celebrating our history here in Zionsville. We hope that through our efforts, we help support and strengthen local businesses, enrich the experiences of residents as well as visitors to Zionsville. And you may be familiar with some of our programs. One of our big programs is the Summer Concert Series, with summer concerts every Wednesday night in June and July in Lions Park, and also on Wednesday nights in August in Lincoln Park. We're also responsible for the painting of the murals on Main Street as well as 106th Street that welcome visitors into the south end of our town. And you may be familiar with the Lincoln mural on the building on First Avenue. And as well, we celebrate our history as Dahlia City by giving away free dahlia tubers at the farmers market in May and inviting people to come back to the farmers market in September and share the success at growing their beautiful dahlias. Those are just a few of the programs that we sponsor here in our community to help enrich the arts for all of our residents. I want to take this opportunity to thank the Community Grants Enrichment Committee for the grant consideration. I'll tell you a little bit about the project. We were very excited when we were approached by Ann Kripe, who owns the Kripe Building at 45 North Main Street, saying that she was interested in having a mural put on the north-facing wall of that building. This is a wonderful opportunity. It's a very large space. It's almost 30 feet wide and almost 14 feet tall. And it has a wonderful front-facing view for all the residents or all of the guests at the North High Brewing establishment who are there for lunch or dinner or are working at Cohatch, or any of our residents that are traveling up and down Main Street, whether walking or driving. So it's a wonderful spot, and we're very appreciative to Ann and her son Bill for their willingness to make this opportunity available. The grant will be used to help pay for the artist. We have selected a very accomplished and experienced muralist, Megan Jefferson. You can find her work online. And Megan has been working very closely with the members of the Zionsville Cultural District, as well as with Ann and Bill in terms of the development of proposals for that mural. Initially, we are hoping to celebrate an aspect of Zionsville's history, and that is to celebrate our history as a stop on the interurban rail that ran from Indianapolis, I believe, all the way to Lafayette. And so this is a wonderful opportunity to create a very engaging and what we hope will be talk of the town, if you will, mural that'll be a wonderful amenity on that part of Main Street. We think this will be very attractive to our residents. We think it'll be a wonderful celebration of an aspect of our history. We're hoping that it'll be very eye-catching and also very engaging. So in closing, let me take the opportunity to thank the Zionsville Community Enrichment Grants Committee, to thank Ann Kripe and Bill Kripe for their generosity making this opportunity possible, and to thank the Mayor's Office, as well as each of you, the members of Town Council, for all of your support in making art come alive here in Zionsville. So thank you very much.
Good evening, council members. My name is Gene Thompson. I'm a volunteer and I serve as the director of Lions Park. This community enrichment grant would be used to engage the service of a design firm to develop a master plan for the expansion of Lions Park. Lions Park was founded 83 years ago in August of 1940 by a few citizens that purchased 8 acres along Elm Street in order to build ball fields and a playground. It was expanded in 1977 with a donation from the developer of the Raintree subdivision for the land between Elm Street and Eagle Creek. It is now that made it a 22-acre park. Earlier this year, the Lions Park was able to acquire 5 additional acres along the northern boundary of the park, and it is now a 27-acre park. This 27-acre park is in the heart of Zionsville and used by the community for many events. Zionsville Lions Park, Inc. is a corporation that is operated and managed by the Zionsville Lions Club members. Lions Park offers an appealing recreational outlet for all ages. We have playgrounds and open spaces. We have 9 ball fields that are used by the Little League. We have a gazebo that's used for entertainment purposes, outdoor entertainment. It's used by the Cultural Arts District on Wednesday nights during the summertime, and on Sunday nights by the Lions Club to have concerts. We have a sand volleyball court and a nearby shelter. We have basketball courts. We have walking paths, and we have restrooms. And of course, as most of you probably have seen, Lions Park is also the home to many events sponsored by the Lions Club, such as the 4th of July fireworks and our Fall Festival. So what do the 5 acres mean to Lions Park? How will it change? The first thing we're doing is having discussions with the Zionsville Parks Department on the availability of providing an easement through our park, through our new property, in order to provide a connecting path along Eagle Creek. This would allow the Creekside Park to the south of Sycamore Street, through Lions Park, through our new 5 acres, and then through the Greg and Kim Storen property to Elm Street Green. But we're not looking at just the 5 acres and what to do with it. We are looking at the entire 27 acres. We believe that in looking at a design and a master plan for the entire 27 acres will help us and allow us to better serve the community for the years in the future. The goal is to create a cohesive site to design the blends of athletic fields, parking areas, active and passive recreational amenities, and small and large gathering spaces. This community enrichment grant will help us reimagine the design and amenities of Lions Park to better serve the needs of the community in the future. Thank you very much for this opportunity to help the Lions serve the community.
All right, are there any questions from council or discussion?
I just want to read one thing really quick before we vote on anything on this. So just as a reminder, these funds all come from the Food and Beverage Fund, and there is a Food and Beverage Fund ordinance that reads as far as what the money can be used for. And this is quoted directly out of the ordinance. Funds collected and deposited in the Food and Beverage Tax Fund by the town shall be solely for the creation and enhancement of any public facility or infrastructure improvement, or to fund initiatives intended to promote the town and its businesses and for no other purpose. So just based on the ordinance, and I know it's going to portray me as the bad guy, but there's a few that I don't understand how they meet that requirement. The ones I checked off as obviously to me meeting the requirement would be the Boys and Girls Club, the Cultural District request, and the Lions Park. The remaining 5 requests, I would welcome anybody, and I should turn it over to the president, but my suggestion would be to welcome anyone from those other 5 groups that would like to somehow give some color to how they qualify based on what I just read. Because I mean, they're all good, valuable services. I'm not looking to be a bad guy, but we also can't go against the ordinance that specifically states what the money can be spent for.
Yeah, I'd be open to have folks come up and talk through that. Adam, can we also get just some legal clarification on that as Councilor Traylor?
Do you have a copy of the ordinance? Yeah. I mean, I don't have it up here in front of me, but I pulled this directly from it. This actually came from my email exchange earlier in the year when we gave funding to a theater in Lebanon. I can pull it up. They haven't up to now.
So do we know if this has been amended since?
It has not.
Correct.
or if it has, I'm unaware.
How the ordinance is available.
Yeah, I'm also just looking at the website where folks would go to apply for the community enrichment grants and trying to look at the application. I mean, if that seems like a significant miss if they weren't directed or clear on what they would or would not.
And
qualify for.
that's why we had them come here to present to us, because previously there were awards being given out that did not qualify.
That's right. Deputy Mayor Patel.
Yeah, I just want to clarify real quick. And we are talking about a certain amount of the food and beverage fund, not an entire, the entirety of the food and beverage fund. This is a small, I think $125,000 is the total amount that we budget each year out of the food and beverage for this specifically. I'm not discounting your point in the ordinance.
Right.
I just want you to, I wanted to make clear that,
Yeah, no, I'm not saying we're
Yeah.
draining, I'm
Right,
not saying
yeah,
we're draining the fund. I'm just saying, no matter if it's a penny, if
I
the
understand.
ordinance doesn't allow for it, I don't know how we can approve it.
I understand.
I'm still looking for that ordinance. I just have the excerpt that
I gave it to him.
oh, you've got it?
Yeah, it's on, if you go to the website, the town website, you click the hyperlink to the ordinance.
Okay.
Is there an ordinance number that you can see?
It's like state statute 34. Yeah.
All the actual words.
34.50.
And again, I know, I all very worthy causes, just if the ordinance doesn't allow for it, I don't know how we can approve it.
We need some background music.
You know. I also tried to click on the online application form, which is not live anymore either. I'd just be curious to see. Try if I can get this again. What all it directs people to. I'm not disagreeing with Brian at all. I'm just trying to figure out what guidance folks were given.
The guidance has been misleading for a long time, and I pointed that out before. And that's the whole reason we have people come to this meeting so that we can approve these, is because I stated publicly that I wouldn't vote to approve any grants from this fund with, as far as seeing them in claims without being presented with the causes.
Counselor Trailer,
Yes.
could I make a suggestion maybe that we possibly table this for legal to take a look at it and then we come back, or we can,
I'll leave that up to President Plunkett. I'm fine with that.
Well, I would imagine we could table it, or we could approve the three that do, right? That do qualify.
Or were you stating it like come back to it at the end of the meeting after legal has had a chance?
well, I mean, I trust legal, but I would,
Or are you suggesting continue to next meeting?
I would continue it to the next meeting, just because in past, we've already awarded grants to several different organizations that may not have qualified under yours. And I'd want legal to review kind of where we're at in that, if that's okay with you, if that makes sense.
And just to clarify again, the reason it's coming back here is because we know that people have been paid out that shouldn't have been.
I'm not qualifying any of that. I just want to make sure that we have time to review and everybody is on the same page.
Okay.
And we haven't cut these checks yet, correct?
No, sir.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Thank you.
If we're getting legal clarification, probably, and I hate to say this, because I agree certainly on the three you identified, they're all good causes. It almost makes sense to just table the whole thing, get legal clarification, and then come back and just make sure we are. I don't
We
have a
would feel
problem with any
better
one of the
if that's okay
organizations.
with you.
Make sure we're all in alignment. I would support that plan too.
Thank you.
I'd make a motion to continue.
So first by Counselor Trailer,
Second.
second by Vice President Burke. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5 in favor, 0 opposed. Next is a consideration of a resolution approving the road impact fee zone improvement plan as an official part of the comprehensive plan. This is resolution 2023-18. And we have Director of DPW Lance to present.
Thank you and good evening. Before you, you have a resolution, which is the second step of a 4-step process involving both the Plan Commission and this council to update the road impact fee for the town of Zionsville. And specifically, this is resolution 2023-18. And this is the document that resolution will incorporate into our comprehensive plan. Plan Commission has already conducted a hearing on this, took public comment. There was none, asked several good questions. And so now this matter comes to you. It will, after this, assuming you approve it, it will go back to the Plan Commission for a recommendation on an ordinance, and that ordinance would come to you in the future for the final implementation of this change. Just very briefly, the town of Zionsville has had in place since 2007 a road impact fee, which places a fee on any new construction, development, new homes at the time that a permit is pulled to charge a fair share of the traffic that will be added to our system as a result of this new construction. That was updated once in 2014, and this would be the second time that this ordinance has been updated, and actually began the process in 2018 with the collection of a significant amount of data on roadway segments and intersections throughout town. At the end of 2019 and moving into 2020, when the committee was actually beginning to do its work, we hit COVID. So this kind of took a 2-year hiatus, and then the committee picked back up in 2022. I gave a rather lengthy presentation at the Plan Commission back in August when they took action on this. So I don't want to keep us here all night, but I also want to give this as much due consideration as you would like to have. But basically, the update involves the creation of a committee whose composition is set pretty strictly in the state statute. They have to be related to development, builders, home builders, construction, developers, real estate agents, et cetera. That committee meets with A&F Engineering, who has always conducted this traffic impact study for us since inception. And they happen to meet 4 times. They review the data that A&F has collected, talk through some possible potential intersection changes. And then at the end of the day, support the recommendation that you see before you. Now, this is a rational nexus. This has to quantify the expenses for existing deficiencies on our network. We can't charge new development for the problems we already have. But we can certainly forecast within a 10-year horizon and see what additional traffic is going to be on our network and charge new development for that. I'm going to turn this over to you for questions at this point, because I could go on. It's fascinating stuff to me, and I go on ad nauseum, but you may be just ready to dispense with this, but I stand by ready to ask any questions or answer any questions you may have.
Does this come to us with a vote from the Planning Commission?
So they have already adopted a nearly identical resolution. This is a confirmatory resolution that you also accept their recommendation to amend this into the comprehensive plan.
Let me rephrase the question then.
Okay.
Do you know was it a unanimous decision?
It was unanimous.
Okay, thank you.
Who makes those appointments to the committee? You said that it's contractors, developers.
Yeah,
realtors.
under our new governance, the mayor makes those appointments.
Is that like a state requirement, or is that?
So it's my understanding that the committee is not required only for merely an update. It is absolutely required when you initiate a road impact fee in your community. But regardless of the legal requirement, it's just good policy and practice to engage the knowledgeable community. We always make sure that Baggy is at the table to participate in these discussions. They represent a lot of home builders, and we always want to make sure that they have ample opportunity to weigh in and understand our process.
And how many are on the committee?
No, I'm sorry, that's the appeal. The appeal committee. This is an advisory committee. There were 7 committee members. By statute, it has to be 5 to 10. And then there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 staff who sat in on the meetings to help guide.
In addition to the 7?
Yeah, they're not part of the committee. They're the support, I guess you'd say.
I think we've seen in the past that there's a good balance of recommendations for committee members from council recommendations or appointments as well as mayoral appointments. Is that something that we could add to the language to this, or is this something that does that mean a whole rewrite, or what's your thought?
Yes, I don't know how to answer that question. The appointments are set by our governance structure, which has a mayor, and the mayor make those appointments. There was an appointment from the plan commission on the committee, and there was an appointment from this board as well.
On the plan commission?
There was a plan commission member appointed to the board, and there was a council member appointed to the board.
Lance, I just was, I was just curious about the timing. If we're going to put in a comprehensive plan next year, is this something we?
No, I would highly recommend that you take action on this now. Every day that this languishes, the town loses revenue. This has to go back to the plan commission for an ordinance recommendation, then back to you. And then it does not take effect for 6 months after final adoption. That's out of deference to any project who is ready to file for their development plan, somebody who's getting ready to build a permit or pull a permit to build a home. So they have a 6 months grace period so that anyone's pro forma is not wildly interrupted. But this is a component of the comp plan. It is not anything that would be addressed under a comprehensive plan update. It is a standalone effort under the state statute.
Okay. That was my next question, when it goes into effect. So. Any questions for Lance? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion.
To make a motion to approve resolution 2023-18. Consideration of resolution approving the road impact fee zone improvement plan.
We got a first by Councilor Melton. I'll second that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, coming down the home stretch. Up next is a consideration of a rezone commitment. This is an amendment, Park 267 petition 23-37-CA, ordinance 2023-21. Roger Kilmer, that's a mouthful.
Good evening, Roger Kilmer. I'm senior planner for the town. I'm going to provide a brief overview of the ordinance request tonight and then turn it over to the petitioners and the development team to provide details for you. In July 2022, rezoning of almost 76 acres from the rural general agricultural district to the light industrial district was approved by the town council. As a part of this rezoning, zoning commitments concerning the use and development of real estate were recorded. One of those commitments specified a 20-foot wide type H buffer adjacent to all agriculturally zoned properties. The type H buffer may be achieved through the option of 4 different widths, and a 20-foot type H buffer yard, which is the minimum width permitted, requires a masonry wall to be included as a part of the buffer. The petitioner at that time understood the commitments were with the intention that a 20-foot buffer yard would be the minimum required. But as recorded, it stated that a 20-foot would be the requirement. The requested commitment amendment seeks to amend the commitments by modifying the width of the type H buffer yard to a minimum of a 30-foot wide type H buffer. This increase in width removes the requirement of a masonry wall, but would require additional plantings and either an 8-foot tall wood stockade fence or a 5-foot tall berm. All other commitments within the recorded commitments are unchanged and would remain in effect. At its September 18th, 2023 meeting, the Plan Commission voted to forward a favorable recommendation of the requested commitment amendment to the town council by a vote of 7 in favor and 0 opposed, including the utilization of a faux stone wall which I'm sure the petitioner will provide information on that. If they don't, I have an exhibit I can show you later, but at this time, I'll turn it over to the development team.
Hi, good evening, members of the town council. My name is Brandon Dickinson, represent the petitioner, and for the record, I'm an attorney at Denton's, Bingham Greenbaum, 10 West Market, 2700 Indianapolis. I'm appearing today in lieu of Matt Price, who had a prior commitment and was unable to attend. Very briefly, as Roger laid out, we have a situation where the buffer that was recorded was more of a minimum, and what we're asking to do is create a scenario where there's actually a more buffer yard space and a more aesthetically pleasing result for everyone's benefit. The type A buffer again was modified here to be 30 feet, and I'm going to hand it over to Brian, and he'll explain in a little more detail visually about how the buffer yard will actually be increased, which sides of the building, I believe it's north and south, that we'll be looking to do that on. And then the Plan Commission actually unanimously approved this earlier. And so I'll turn it over to Brian, and then I'll be available for any questions that council members may have. So, Brian.
Good evening, members of the town council. My name is Brian Sheward. I'm a civil engineer at Kibling Horn and Associates. Our offices are at 500 East 96th Street, Suite 300 in Indianapolis. What you can see up there, I'm here as well, representing the Browning Prologis joint venture on this project. And this is the Subaru warehouse that's under construction off of State Road 267. You can see that on the screen. It's on the northwest corner of State Road 267 and County Road 550. In the existing condition, it was a farm field. It's under construction now. 3 parcels, agricultural use. And then on the hard northwest corner, you can see there are a few properties there that are not a part of this project, but they're the cutout there in the southeast corner of the green box that you see. Notably, east side of 267 is the Becknell Industrial Development that came several years back. I think it's important to point out, when this was brought through a rezone several years ago, back in 2020, there was a hypothetical site plan that at the time the developer was on a speculative basis looking to develop, which is a multi-building layout. The north on this image is to the right. So State Road 267 runs along the bottom, and then 550 is there on the left side. The layout and orientation originally contemplated was 2 cross dock industrial warehouses. So there was dock positions on the north and the south sides, with the auto parking predominantly on the east side, with some auto parking on the west. As the project took shape, the developer was able to work with landing this build to suit, which changed that to a single building layout where the building had been reoriented in a north-south direction. So 1 building, and then it was oriented north-south, which with the dock positions, as you see on the west and the east sides, detention between 267 and the building here in blue, as you see, and then detention here on the far south side of the site. The highlighted areas around the outside, if you can see that, are the buffers that we were required to adhere to. The yellow buffers are the ones that are in question, that we're asking for relief from the strict interpretation of how it was written. On the northeast, which is here on the bottom right, is a 20-foot buffer yard type H, as Roger had mentioned. The important point to show in this particular case is that as the layout of the building, we no longer have docks facing the north, and we also have quite a bit more space than 20 feet that's green space before you reach that first driveway. And then even further as you go further south to get to the first dock position here on the far south side. Similarly, on the south side, there's 2 different conditions. On the southwest, which is in the upper left, is a 20-foot type H. In that location, we've got the detention pond immediately north of 550. And then north of that is auto parking. And then you come around the edge of the building to reach the dock positions. And also worth noting, each one of the corners of the building does have an office bump out, a further screen of the dock positions there on all four corners. And then lastly, here on the southeast, which is in the bottom left, is the location where we abut residential neighbors there. And in that location, we also had a 20-foot type H that was a part of the zoning commitment. But as seen in this graphic, we have more space than 20 feet before you reach the first hard element, the loop drive that comes around that corner. So to summarize, what we're asking for is to still abide by the type H buffer, but have the flexibility in choosing the right size of width that we actually have in our site plan. So there's a 20-foot, a 30, a 40, and a 50-foot option with a type H buffer. The more width you have, the material and the ingredients change, I would say. The further away, the less intensive of the landscaping and the material, the tighter is where the masonry wall comes in. So in our case, on the northeast corner here in red, you can see my cursor. In this location, we could put in a 50-foot type H and still have nearly 100 feet further to go before you reach anything. The material would stay the same from a landscaping perspective, just by way of how the ordinance is written, the same number of shade trees, evergreens, ornamental trees, but we wouldn't have the masonry wall that is currently shown in the 20-foot width. On the southwest here in red, similar, the exact same situation where we can have a 50-foot and some, we have extra space even beyond that 50-foot. So the material would stay the same, but we wouldn't have the masonry wall. And then the blue area, which is where we're closest to our neighbors here to the south, the ask would be to go to a 40-foot. The 40-foot width, it's 42 feet, I think exactly, between the property line and that loop drive is the closest hard feature there. The 40-foot option for a type H has an elevated amount of landscaping required above what we have in, I'll say, in the development plan approval that we had. And the masonry wall is not a masonry wall anymore. It calls for a wood stockade fence is what it calls for, or a berm, as Roger mentioned. Because that area is a drainage pathway from this pond, an overland flow route that eventually moves its way from that larger pond through that gap to the front ponds, and then eventually works its way to White Lick Creek on the other side of 267. We can't put in a berm, but we can put in a fence. And this is be happy to go through this, but this is just the prescription of what our current plan shows and what the proposed plan shows. Happy to answer any questions, but don't expect you to read all that. But there on that southeast corner where we're abutting the neighbors to the south, this is a product that we've seen used personally at our engineering firm. We've used this in a few cases. We feel it's a betterment than a wood fence. It's a vinyl product, but it looks like a stone fence. Off I-69, IKEA, behind IKEA, it's used. If you've been past there, you probably didn't notice, but you'll probably notice it now, as well as around Whitestown, it's been used a few times. But this is a betterment in our opinion. I think it's technically a more expensive option than a wood fence, but the long-term maintenance is less. And the wood boards don't necessarily have to be replaced if this is it. But if the town council would prefer a wood fence, I'm sure we'd be happy to do that. But we're offering this as, I think, closer to a masonry wall, I think is the intent that we're proposing. So if there's any questions, we'd be happy to answer, but I'll leave that up for questions.
You may have answered this already, or it was in one of the slides you showed. What's the elevation of the masonry requirement for elevation of the masonry wall versus the wood fence?
I think it's a 5-foot masonry, Roger, and a 8-foot vinyl. I think is the way.
So a higher elevation.
Yeah, I believe so. I'm not sure. Sorry to put you on the spot there, Roger. Yes. Okay, 8. I'm sorry. So,
Okay, so both are 8 feet. Okay, but there's no reduction in height because you're going.
No, we would. Our intent is to follow the ordinance as written. The nuance is that going into this, I believe the applicant originally thought that they'd be able to pick the type of type H buffer to use depending on how the site plan actually worked out in the long run. But because it listed 20 feet, the strict interpretation is we must meet the 20-foot option, even though we have more space. And so we're trying to use what the ordinance would typically give an applicant an option to pick from. So that's where we're showing 50 foot on the northeast, 50 foot on the southwest, and 40 foot there in the southeast corner.
Does the width of the area affect the height of the burn at all?
I don't believe so. I think the 5-foot berm comes into play as an option in the 40-foot option, but the vertical berm takes up horizontal space. So if 5 foot would require 15 feet up, typically a 3 to 5 foot top, 15 feet down ends up being about 35 feet plus or minus. But in that location in the southeast corner, because it's an overland flood route path, we can't physically do that without with adhering to the drainage ordinance there.
Roger, this past 7-0, I was listening to this as I was driving around the state. I don't remember anyone of your neighbors testifying against this. Is that correct?
Roger's shaking his head yes. That seems to be correct.
It's a good project in the right area. I think it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. As long as there wasn't any difference in height of the, fencing, that it didn't decrease the height too.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the only thing I was concerned about.
Any other questions from council?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2023-21.
Second.
First by Councilor Garrett and a second by Councilor Choi. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Up next are other matters. Are there any other matters from council? I would just put out real quick. I won't be at the next meeting. So as things start to come through, Councilor Burke might need to run that one. So
So give me your really good agenda items.
there you go. Got 'em. All right.
Hey, are you okay with an ARPA spending plan without you, or do you like, it's not urgent, but
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
I'd like to get it on, get it moving along as quickly as it can so that we get everything accomplished. So
I'll make a motion to adjourn then.
got a first by Councilor
Second.
Garrett, second by Vice President Burke. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed. The next regular town council meeting is scheduled for Monday, October 23rd, 2023 at 7:30 a.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers. Please note the shift in dates due to Zionsville School's fall break. Public notice will be posted in compliance with the Indiana Open Door Law.